Okay, we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Dumb SEO Questions, episode 283. Each week we meet here to answer the questions asked on the SEO Questions community on Google Plus and the Dumb SEO Questions Facebook group. With us tonight, we've got Masataki Wasa. Masataki is webmaster of wasaweb.net in the UK. He is also a Google top contributor on the AdSense community. And you can find Masa at wasaweb.net. Micah Fisher-Kirshner is head of SEO for Turn River Capital. Did I use the right term there? Cool. And he's based on the west coast of the USA. He is a regular on the public speaking circuit, or public speaking SEO circuit. All right, let's get cracking. We've got 13 questions tonight. I hope it's not an unlucky number. This one, the first one is a question. Has anyone seen an increase in search engine result page ranking from using Google Plus? It's from John Hoey Web Design. He said, I've been reading that it will have an effect on the rankings, but is this for the Google Plus account or does it help your website?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that from any known circles of mine. Sorry. Usually, in general, like social media is not known for an increase in your in SERPs for using social media, at least not directly. What I do recall is Google Posts and the Twitter card showing up themselves in like separate sections, not necessarily in the regular web kind of results. So yeah, I haven't seen anything on that.
Yeah, it seems to be a persistent myth that has been going on ever since the creation of Google Plus. Directly, no. And in a sense, any differences that Google Plus made, for example, the picture, the icon, the profile picture appearing next to search results and so on and so forth, those have been cut back progressively over the years. So in a sense, it's less and less the case. And I don't think Google Plus ever had any relevance on the ranking itself directly. There may have been some differences in terms of presentation and in terms of perhaps how data is collected. And there are anecdotal evidence to suggest that it does make it, or it hastens the delivery of the linked entity. But those are about it as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a myth perpetuated by people willing to stoop to charging people money to optimize their Google Plus account. There's always somebody willing to part with a payment. All right, let's move on from that. Nicholas Bodell asks a question titled, is there any difference in doing SEO for a forum site versus a regular domain? I see Alan Blue Eyes is back on deck and healthy and answering on the Dumb SEO Questions Facebook group. Is there any difference in doing SEO for a forum site versus a regular domain on the same topic?
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely a difference. Not in the vein of like Alan there, yeah, the basics are still apply. Probably the biggest issues are going to be UGC. I presume scale, because in theory the forum sites can have a lot of content. And you're essentially gunning after, while potentially the same topic, you're actually kind of gunning in different ways. Your competitor list that you're comparing yourself to is different. So how you optimize and focus your content is in a different way than you would from a regular domain. Yes, is there a difference? There is. Those differences at a small scale or at the basics of general optimization, not huge, not the largest difference, but when you start to really, in the end, think about how you actually manage users and making sure they're not putting in poor quality content, or how you potentially scale up the site architecture without either duplication or waste of pages that don't need to be there, to again, who your competitors are, and make a large difference for the more advanced tactics, so to speak.
Thank you, Micah. Yep. And so I think to sum up in a nutshell for Nicholas Burdell, the answer is yes. No, I should say no. The answer is no. Oh, boy, am I in for a bad night.
Not really. Yeah, basics not really, but like as you go up and think about the expansion, there's definitely larger stuff that does differentiate.
Excellent. Thank you, mate. Okay, let's go to the next. 3 down and 10 to go. Kat Dawson asked the question. It's titled Identical Content in 2 different countries. Kat said, my question is, how can we best resolve this mess? The company has been developing a new site forever. They are based in the UK and South Africa. For some reason, they published the new site on a South African domain already, but the UK site is still not published. The majority of the content is identical, and they were not aware of duplicate content issues when planning to publish the same site on 2 domains, feeling that if they were in different countries, it wouldn't be an issue. Given timelines and budgets, would you advise rewriting the UK site? The goal is that both sites rank in their own countries. How much of a problem is it, and would Google see it as duplicated if they are not competing in the same search results? Maybe I'm thinking it's more of a problem than it actually is.
So it depends on a couple of things, I would say. If you're talking about the only difference between the 2 domains is .co.za and .co.uk, and they're brand new, probably not the worst of issues. As mentioned, like if you can get an href laying in there, whether in the HTML or through XML sitemap, that would be ideal to kind of do that. If you can get Google Search Console, you can also classify those sites to their specific country. Of course, if they're already on the TLD, that kind of generally happens automatically. Those can generally be the quicker fix issues. And the href laying, in case not mentioned, basically helps to connect the 2 sites. And you're telling Google, these 2 sites are essentially the same. This one for this country, this one for that. And if you use the X default, you can say which one do you want to show as default if they're not coming from the UK or from South Africa. Google does try to do its best in terms of figuring that out, but it's never perfect. So having those kind of things in there if you can't go in and change the content between them, are kind of a good starting measure as a way to separate those out without going and spending a lot of time.
Yeah. You go ahead, Mr. Taki.
I just wanted to ask a question. In this case, there is a constraint that there are two separate domains. Let's say it's example.co.uk, example.co.za. But if you are setting up a site and you're targeting two countries with exactly the same content, would you rather go for a global domain, .com, for example, and keep it as one site? Or would you still go for two different sites, if the content is exactly the same?
I mean, I think this comes down to sometimes an SEO's preference. I generally like separating them by having two separate domains because the TLDs imply country, and people treat those, in my opinion, as more trusted from their said country than it is if it was under a .com/ or under a subdomain of a .com. So, but I understand, like, from the other side that having it on a subfolder in particular pulls in the value all the way to the main .com, so all the value can be split within the site versus having two different ones. But I usually side more with having them as two separate TLDs than I would under the same domain.
Yeah, I think especially if there are sort of slight differences, contact details, pricing, those kind of things, then it does make sense to have two different sites. Just curious what others thought about this issue.
Yeah, the thing kind of something about that is, like, it's weird though, like, if you don't do that potentially, especially if it's not on a .com, because and I've seen, actually I saw this the other day. I was doing some keyword research and I saw the .co.uk show up, and I'm like, the heck, why? Like, it's the intrinsic response on my end, even as an SEO, is going, something's not right, rather than this is a site that should properly show up. So that's if it's an odd TLD type, like an actual country domain, or CCTLD, I should say. Now if it was just a .com, yeah, no issue. But yeah, I mean, it could be simple. You could just merge it into one. But if there is a plan to later on differentiate the content, then you've got everything at least set up, ready to go.
Excellent. Let's wrap that one and we'll go to the next. This one from Joanna Jana Laznika. What are the current best practices for search engine optimization with regards to directory sites? Joanna went on to ask, I have a site in a specific niche that gets great traffic. The site is known as an authority in the specific niches. Many universities and even government agencies link to it. I am going to make a sister site that is a directory for those that support that specific niche. What are the current best practices for search engine optimization regards to directory sites? My biggest fear is that that site damaging my authoritative site's ranking due to some funky algorithm. Even those people in the specific niche desperately need some sort of directory to source specific consultants and software.
So this, okay. In the industry parlance, a directory might mean something else than what your meaning and intent is here. In kind of the SEO parlance and forgiving present company, directories generally, like, nobody, like, Google does not care really about. They're not seen as of value to users anymore. Like, yeah, okay, there may be an exception here or there, but you just don't see them ranking. You don't see many. Now, in what it sounds like, it's kind of a potentially a curated list, a site that helps to find people's stuff, kind of a like a LinkedIn, for a contract site, works, things like that, that's a different story. If you're building a site like that, in those situations, then I can refer back to question 1, which is generally the basic practices for building your own site versus, say, this kind of helpful site is the same. There are going to be differences here or there between that, just because you're kind of the intent of the users and what kind of site you're building is going to be different. You might be a bit more on the informational side and build a lot more content that you would necessarily. So yeah, like the example here, like, it really does depend in terms of like what old parlance of what a directory is versus current, which is something like, you've got Capterra and these. I call more of a comparison site, comparison than I do like as a directory. But yeah, you just mostly, the basics are going to be the same for what you're doing. It's just that advanced level kind of differentiates again.
Thank you, Micah. All right, let's tweet that and we'll move on to the next. Five down, 8 to go. Adam John Humphreys has a question on ads pop-up and search engine pop-ups and search engine optimization. He said the interstitials policy is really vague. Major sites like Forbes use preloaders prior to loading up content with quotes and an ad. We see tons of sites like neilpatel.com, gee, it's hard to say that, brackets bad example, using opt-in monster full page pop-ups to subscribe to email lists and all other sorts of horrors. What exactly is good versus not? Pop-ups on leaving a site, etc., with offers for a discount, etc., enhance conversions. There just isn't enough clarification here.
I use ad block, so like I'm biased in that any pop-up is a bad pop-up. So I might not be the best arbitrator for that. And I'm assuming with this that the policies and blog posts that Google and the visuals that Google has provided, I guess, is still pretty vague for you. So I'm not aware of generally beyond what Google has stated on this, which is kind of has been laid out both from a mobile end as well from a desktop end. Although I guess in theory, desktop's not going to matter if they're going to a mobile first index. So yeah, so like the clarifications, like what exactly you're looking for. Like basically the way that I've always looked at it from Google's perspective is that like pop-ups on leaving the site, no issue, because it's on the interaction with when somebody first comes in. Like you can't overlay fully across the screen. You got to be able to kind of close it as well. Anything that generally is above and beyond what it would be in terms of just basic annoyance is kind of some of the factors of what I would say. And there are different ways that people have tried to get around it, where I've seen the push the content down type of in-page ad, and that kind of on its own is a separate annoyance. And I'm not sure if Google's addressed that one, but what I would kind of love is just understanding of like what kind of variation, like what about that in there is confusing to you versus not, because they give a lot of good examples already. So that's part of like my curiosity to the question. But otherwise, the way I would just look at it is like anything after any first kind of interaction when somebody lands on the page. So for example, when you go to another page, you get a pop-up. You are about to leave, you get a pop-up. Those Google doesn't look at. Those Google doesn't, as far as I'm aware, necessarily care about. It's really on that first interaction of like, they don't want to see kind of that pop up right away when they or people are trying to scan through the site. That's the type that they are annoyed with. But small little information for something like that, a live chat button that's off to the side, those things are generally defined as okay for the user. Ads, less so.
Thank you, Micah.
One place I would look into is the Coalition for Better Ads. They're publishing all sorts of different studies and demonstrating or showing what kind of ads people get most annoyed by. It's at www.betterads.org, and that involves a lot of industry organizations and companies. Google is part of it, and AdSense, for example, is integrating the findings into the policies. At least the direction is quite clear. There was a recent post on the AdSense blog specifically referring to the Coalition for Better Ads. So I think that there will be some sort of standard, a common set of standard that's accepted by different industry bodies about what kind of ads permissible on a good site. And I think Google will take that into consideration on the search side as well.
Thank you, Mr. Taki. All right, let me tweet that, and we'll, I think I have anyway, but we'll just check. We'll move, yes, I have. Let's move on to number 6 on our run list, 7 to go. This one from Marcus Chris. 2 pages are competing with each other is the title. He goes on to say 2 pages for a beauty e-shop. Number 1 is a normal catalogue page for beauty products, brackets, makeup, etc. And number 2 is a landing page for the same catalogue page that has nice images and buttons, etc. The pages are competing with each other. What is the proper way to handle this issue? Most of the time, the normal catalogue page outranks and has a higher click-through ratio than the landing page.
Proper way is to get a 3rd page to rank. If you've got 1 and 2, go for more. Get an informational page. I disagree with Alan on this. Unless those pages are not ranking highly, that's great. I love creating situations where, a setup is such that I don't care where you click, just click because of my results. So, yay, good for you.
Yep, it's called domain crowding in some places, but it's not unheard of for this one site to dominate a whole page.
Yeah.
All right, and just for balance, Alan Blue Ice on the Dumb SEO Questions Facebook group said, sounds like you need to 301 redirect the non-catalogue page to the catalogue page. And that would be an action that Chris could take, or Marcus could take, if a competitor started beating both of those pages, maybe. Anyway, let's tweet that and we'll move on. I can't read the name, but it's titled, can an expert help me with my backlink strategy? Something to say, hello everyone, can an expert help me with my backlink strategy? To be more specific, it is a site for selling real estate signs, and the second one is for selling canvas prints. How can I get more traffic except for using local citations? Can you suggest some tutorials, blog posts, or social platform to promote the site. At this point, I don't think that Quora or Pinterest can help. Do you have any ideas? Thanks in advance. I see Dave Elliott gave a great answer on the Dumb SEO Questions Facebook group. And I thank Masataki for translating for me. It's Alexandra Stoyanovska.
So, local SEO is not my specialty. You can, if Tim was here, he'd be good for that. You can, plug Andrew Shotland at Local SEO Guide. He might have some general thoughts or ideas. You can take a look at his site, or you can take a look at his Twitter feed. So, I mean, the strategy probably has some similarities, but I'm honestly not the best one to be able to provide a good enough of an answer for this, to be
honest. Okay. Masataki, did you think that Tim Capper was the right person for beauty products?
And local SEO. So, no, I would read up on Tim's blog post and site as well, because he has, I think, written a few times, and his articles are a good resource for local SEO. So I'd definitely check his site out at onlineownership.com, isn't it?
That's exactly it. I was just about to say that, onlineownership.com. Right, let's tweet that as an answer for Alexandra Stoyanovsky. Did I get that wrong again? Stoyanovska. And let's move on to the next. All right, this one, it's a question from Jeff Berkner. He said, all pages dropped out of the index after HTTPS migration. Why? Jeff said, hi, SEO folks. Doing an HTTPS migration, submitted sitemap with HTTPS pages on the 7th of April, and all of them were indexed by the 9th of April. Then 10 days later, they dropped out of the index. I know that both HTTP and HTTPS pages were still live. Finally got htaccess working correctly yesterday. But I didn't think that that was a reason to drop the pages out of the index. Currently, doing a site search indicates that HTTPS homepage is indexed, but all other indexed pages are HTTP.
Yeah,
sorry,
so
yeah, go ahead, Micah.
Oh, yeah, things to look for, because without looking at the site, I have no idea what might be the actual issue. Making sure robots.txt is not excluding bots. Making sure you don't have no index on your HTTPS pages. Making sure your canonical is not referencing back to the HTTP version. I've seen that happen, creating a nice little redirect loop. Go to Google Search Console and register both the HTTP and HTTPS accounts. Make sure your redirect is using a 301, not any other. What else would be kind of some of the big things to consider? Make sure most of it has been a one-to-one mapping. It gets complicated if you haven't done a one-to-one, and by that I mean the HTTP URL to the HTTPS URL, not to like if you've migrated but then merged a lot of pages together, you might have created some issues on that side of it. So it might just take a little bit longer. I guess that gives you 6 so far. I think of what else might be worthwhile to check offhand. Check. And I think that gets you at least a starting point. So if there's there are other things beyond that, I guess the other part might be servers. Are they hosted on the same servers? Between just things might be a little weird. Like, is the HTTPS actually HTTPS? Like, are there stuff that's actually completely broken? So they're not really secured. That might affect it, probably not, but never hurts to check. And yeah, so hopefully that gives you a good starting point to look through a number of potential reasons for why.
Yeah, in this instance, it sounds as if both the HTTP and HTTPS were alive for some time until he had gained access to htaccess and had presumably been redirecting now. So, of course, then he had two sites, essentially two different sites, and the HTTPS sitemap was submitted and that got indexed. But of course, from Google's perspective, they have the same content on two sites, on the HTTP and HTTPS side, right? Both are live, both are there. So in that instance, would it make sense for Google to say, well, all the signals point to HTTP, and we found exactly the same copy on HTTPS, but all the signals that we have point to the HTTP side. So we assume that's the, if you like, the canonical location for that content. So they've decided to drop the HTTPS for a while. Would that be a possible explanation? So long as the HTTP is still there and indexed.
Yeah, I think that's the exact answer, Mr. Taki. That's where I was going, where I said on the Dumb SEO Questions Facebook group, do you have both the HTTP and HTTPS versions set up in the Google Search Console? Because I think that if he does set up the HTTP, he'll find the opposite graph to the one he sees for HTTPS, and you'll find that the pages dropped into the HTTP version at the same time as they dropped out of the HTTPS version. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what that was my guess. So, but the question is now, has he now redirecting everything to HTTPS? And I think that, and if that redirect is working properly, then it should be a matter of time before the HTTPS index and HTTP drops out.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Let's tweet that and we'll move on. Let's go to the next. This one, it's number 9. We've got 4 to go. He said, it's David Roslanowski. David said, I'm still not getting any traffic. What am I doing wrong? I've spent a lot of time on my SEO for my Shopify store, laminimus.com, and I'm still not getting any traffic, not even for low competition, long tail keywords. Can I get some help? I had a good look at this site on the night that he posted. It seems to me that George G summed it up. He said, your on-site is all over the place, you lack focus. And, overall, this site needs a lot of polish. Darwin has got to put himself in the mind of a viewer, or at least imagine himself as a new viewer to his site. How would they read it? I think we've become blind to the imperfections of our own creations. because we've looked at them so many times in the creative process, we eventually accept that they're fine. But if he were to look at that site with fresh eyes and perhaps compare it to another e-commerce site, he might very well say, oh my God, OMG.
I mean, there's definitely things that can be improved. I'm just taking a look through the site right now, but like, yeah, I guess kind of the question would be what's intrinsically special and unique about it. There's a lot in the clothing space and even the baby clothing, I guess I should say. So I don't like, I see mostly kind of generally minor stuff. I don't see any like larger issues right off the bat. Let's see, what is it? You know, if you're not ranking at all, even for long tail, that's generally what I would try to find is what might be causing that issue. So let me do one other check here. Yeah, I'm just checking the robots.txt here just to see if there's any bad regex that might be creating issues. And presuming that if you haven't got, I'm presuming, or I mean, if you know, there's always making sure you've got Google Search Console set up so that if there's any warnings of things that are improperly set up, you'll know. Generally, like, you know, if you've got spam, AdWords, hacks, accidentally fully blocking your site, or it's not fully rendering properly to Googlebot, those things will give you at least some information. But yeah, I mean, product pages don't have enough content. Your content isn't focused for the page, so like the page itself is saying, the first thing I see if I'm trying to go to onesies, the main content says baby girl outfits, not onesies. In fact, the title tag first focuses on baby girl boutique clothing. So your focus is not direct to the actual content of the page. You're using a different term to describe the page itself, even though the URL is focused around onesies. So you have a mismatch between how you define the content itself. I have a personal pet peeve with a very large amount of scripts before you even get to the content. You're basically pushing it so that it's going to take it's going to be a pain to load. You need to make sure that your mobile version is nice and fast as well for that same point. So those are at least like a couple of things I see right away. Let me jump to mobile. Oh, that's an annoying ad. Yeah, I mean, you've got a bit of an ad that kind of flops right away and really, wow, visualizing it through search through inspect. But that just view special offer inside shows up right away. First thing I see is still, again, baby girl outfits with nothing below that. So I don't see any images. I have to scroll to see a first image. Yeah, and those are at least a couple of things just from a user's perspective. I don't see anything that like that says to me like this is a good site, because you're not targeting things correctly. In fact, I couldn't even find categories after I went into the mobile side. So yeah, I think just how you define stuff and how you like it needs to be consistent. Code needs, the scripts in the header need to be just minimized, reduced to bare minimum. I shouldn't have to scroll 300, what do they call it, 300 lines before I even get to the regular HTML. You watch out for the just for you little ad there. It's a bit high. And just kind of content seems pretty sparse. So those are a few things I would look at.
Thank you, Micah. I had a look on Facebook because mums with young babies can be found on Facebook. I see that Darwood has only one review, and it's one that he wrote himself. Don't do that, Darwood. You said that this is really cute. We loved it. I cannot wait to put them on the little one. Thank you so much. Don't do that. Delete that one and do whatever you can to get some genuine reviews. And I'd be putting calls to action on the Facebook page. At this stage, of course, you probably get more traffic on the Facebook page as anything else. Invite every relative you know that has a baby of this age that is a potential client. See if you can get them coming to your Facebook page and interacting on there. Put your calls to action there to sell product and just execute them via the card on the site. Yeah, that's my thoughts. That site really needs polish, and I think that the advice that you gave, Micah, was valuable. Did I overwrite anyone? No. Okay, let's go to the next. This one from Ahmed Osama Abraham. Does the number of search results for a keyword affect the difficulty of ranking, or does it mean that it just requires more time to crawl to the top? I won't give the examples that he gives on the Dumb SEO Questions Facebook group, but he said keyword one has 800 or 3.5 million search results, and keyword 2 has 250,000 search results for an example.
Yeah, I wouldn't look at the number of results as kind of a indicator of how difficult it is. A lot of those results can be junk. So there may be an exception when you get down to like very few, like sub 100 or sub 1,000 type of search results for a set query. Then yeah, okay, that you've got a fairly easy amount of ability to rank. But like at that point, when you start getting in pretty high numbers, what just comes down to is how good their SEO is, not necessarily volume, not necessarily CPC. Like none of those really give a true SEO indicator of how competitive it is. I know certain people like to use either volume or CPC as kind of an arbitrator for that, but I think it doesn't necessarily tell you how good their SEO really is. Maybe in some interaction together with all those variables, there might be something, but I've never been able to view that those indicate how competitive those results are.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of competitiveness, no, but in terms of, in a sense, reward, then volume is important, isn't it? Because you might have 3.5 million results and no one's looking for that. Then getting to the top of that doesn't really mean much. Whereas even if it's 250,000 search results, but lots of people looking for that, then it makes sense to be at the top of that.
Well, yeah, not if there's a direct answer. I mean, a lot of the volume is due to people searching for definition of X. Like,
sure.
Unless you're a definitional site, it doesn't make sense. Or there's a big like local result, and that just throws off any other results. You're not going to get much volume there. There's a massive snippet that's just dominating. So I kind of tend to shy away from using that.
Okay. All right. I think we've given Ahmed a good answer. Let me tweet it. Let's go to the next. This one from Dante J. Finari on the proper way to create a URL structure. He said, I'm working on a client website, a dance studio. In terms of the link structure, would either option 1 or option 2 below net a greater benefit in terms of the architecture of the site? Option 1 is dancestudio.com/classes/pre-professional group, or option 2 is dancestudio.com/pre-professional group-class. He said, I've created a classes page that would cover the four main classes offered. But I'm just wondering if either option above would yield better results due to the link structuring, or is it negligible and I'm looking too much into it? I don't think he is. I think it's good to be looking closely at this point.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. It's option 1. Not only that, I think you need to think about it from a architectural standpoint, both within the SEO side, but also for your analytics. It just makes it easier to be able to break things up and see how things are doing by each of those different sets and subsections of your site. So having everything at the top level doesn't actually have any intrinsic value. The concept of having so many slashes is a myth that it plays a part in terms of fewer slashes means it seems to be more important. That is not at all viewed in that way. So I think go with option 1, make it a lot easier for both users to understand. You're going to be creating breadcrumbs out of this anyway. And so you should generally think of it as like your breadcrumbs should kind of match to what the URL structure should be. And I think I think that's where option 1 does a good job of it. And it looks like Jim's speaker.
I'm okay now. I had a problem with my sound.
Are we sure? We're good. Okay. Just wanted to make sure because I was getting feedback and hearing myself.
Yeah, sorry about that. It went crazy. As I think it's time for a new laptop, or maybe I should reformat and start again. All right. So we've covered this one because I was off the air for a little while. Okay, cool. I'm going to tweet that. Oh, I think I did. Okay, let's go to the next. This one from Nicholas Bedell. And how important is it to have HTTPS in terms of SEO and ranking?
Yeah, I think Alan's answer on this is actually sufficient. Yeah. Tiebreaker, but Firefox and Chrome browsers are starting to beginning to warn people. So, yeah, I mean, even if it's just a personal domain, which I don't think really should be something that matters, and I think it's being pushed over heavily from what it actually, the value prop of it is. But yeah, if the browser's really going to be pushing to make it look like your domain has some type of hack or it's not secure, like not safe, then something you need to be aware of. And it could be more of an issue outside of SEO than it is within SEO.
Yeah, and it's Google flexing its muscle, and I totally agree. It's not the issue it's being made out, and also I'd love to know how much it is costing the community at large for all of these SSL certificates.
Well, it's not just the cost of the SSL, but it's the time involved to have to make a change that, for most situations, is not needed, in my opinion. Yeah, it makes sense for forms and ecom and login, all those things. Like certain changes that Google asked for made sense, but all it is information. Like there are ways to go about it. Makes sense from like various men in the middle stuff, or you're at a hotel, the hotel's tracking you within that. Sure, okay, I understand that. But I think the level of concern was overhyped than what was warranted, the way I would put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it gives a false sense of security, doesn't it? Because your transmission might be secure, but the site it might itself not be. You could have an HTTPS site which is a scammer site, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, I think it's not actually about security. It's more about not having others be involved in the conversation. In a lot of ways, people see secure as not malware, not being hacked, not, hey, the hotel's inserting information into this while you're on their Wi-Fi and can kind of overlook what you're doing. I think that's a different mentality that people have, and I think trying to mandate that as secure so that they can't do it, but the hackers can still get around in other ways doesn't, like, it's kind of bad form. I don't think it's the accurate way to describe why this needs to be implemented in what use case.
But I think there is a misunderstanding, a sort of common and widespread misunderstanding that because it has a green padlock, the site is safe. Where there is it's no such thing, as it were, because the hacker could hack the site.
Yeah.
And then, even if it's HTTPS, it doesn't really matter. I suppose the only good thing about, well, not the only, but in terms of SEO, what may be an advantage with HTTPS is the ability to use HTTP2. So that does make the site faster, especially if you have lots of components. And that sort of compensates for the time needed for the SSL verification and so on and so forth. At least that's been sort of my experience, in that if you have HTTPS, if you have TLS, then you can use HTTP2, and that does make quite a bit of difference, I think, visually to the visitor.
Mm-hmm. Right, so to sum up, an HTTPS site can still distribute malware, but they will crypto lock your machine securely. Sometimes I laugh at my own jokes, only because no one else will. Okay, let's go to the next. This one from Subash Basnet. It's titled "Using a Company Name on Each Page Title." Subash said, "Do you guys think using the company brackets business name on each page title will help in optimization for a new business? I have seen on search engine results page results that some are using keyword plus business name on the title. Or should I use the keyword related to that page?" I liked Dave Elliott's answer on the Dumb SEO Questions Facebook group.
So if you don't, Google will. And if Google does it, they're going to do it their way. So you need to have it in, period. Take control of your name, how you want it, how it should look, because You don't want Google making that determination for you where possible.
One marker, yes, that's certainly a point. All right. Okay, so I think it's that time again. It's thank you for watching time, and we thank you for taking an interest in what we do, because your interest makes what we do worthwhile. We'll be back at the same time next week to do this all again. But for now, it's good night and